Hi everyone, and it is Kate here for another video, and in this video I want to tell you about the most fun books that I read this year. And I say most fun because I have, my most favorite books from the year, but those to me are the ones that kind of gave me book hangovers and have maybe more literary merit, but these are ones that might still have some literary merit, but were easier reads and ones that I just wanted to keep coming back to, and I was just so excited to pick up, and I will definitely be rereading them. And the first on the list is Nightingale Wood by Stella Gibbons. This was such a treat, and it was at the very beginning of the year, and it is a sort of Cinderella retelling, and it is about Viola, who has married into the Wither family and is a young widow, though, then at the beginning of the book, and has to move in with her terrible in-laws because she has no money and she has nowhere else to go. But this is such a delightful mix, as many modern classics are, of plot, dynamic plot, beautiful writing, but also very hilarious and kind of as satisfying as some big classics, but a lot shorter and a lot more palatable, maybe to some people who are intimidated. This was definitely one of the most fun books that I read this year. And the second on the list is Wild Strawberries. This is by Angela Thirkell. This also has a really nice mixture of plot with beautiful writing and hilarious scenes that made me laugh out loud. And this does have somewhat of a love triangle, which frustrates some people, but in this I didn't think it was very frustrating, and I thought it lended itself to the plot well. But this is very twee, as some people say about, charming British things, vintage things. And it's just about Mary Preston, who is a guest at her Aunt Agnes's house, and she falls for the playboy David Leslie, but then he has an older brother who Agnes and her mother are hoping she will end up falling in love with. But it's very charming, very cozy, and I really enjoyed Wild Strawberries. And third on the list are just all of the Lunar Chronicles. It has made such a wonderful memory from my reading year, and these are sci-fi retellings of fairy tale, and just so much fun. So the first Cinder is Cinderella, the second Scarlet is a retelling of Little Red Riding Hood, the third Cress being Rapunzel, and the fourth Winter being Snow White. And so it's just really neat to see her creative spin on these fairy tales and transitioning them into more science fiction type things. But such a really interesting and neat overarching plot, and so many characters to get to know, all of the 4 princesses and the 4 men in their lives. It's just really fun, and I highly recommend this series. I don't read much YA, but I really enjoy this, and if you can get a hold of the audiobooks, they made it really fun for me. Next on the list is Miss Buncle's Book by D.E. Stevenson, and this is about a little town, a very little town, and people who are kind of bored who live in the town. So Miss Buncle, being the main character, decides she's going to write a book, and she's going to write a book inspired by all of the different characters who live in her town, and not tell any of them that she wrote it. And there are so many astute observations that she makes about the people in the town, but they weren't necessarily expecting this book to be written about them. And so it kind of shakes up the town, and they're all wondering who wrote it. And I do have plans in the next year to get to Miss Buncle married. The fifth on the list is The Great Hunt by Robert Jordan. So I know I had said earlier in the year that I had given up on The Great Hunt when I was halfway through book 4, but I had decided that I just really crave fantasy in winter, and so I think I just needed a break from it more, and now I have started book 4 again and am thoroughly enjoying it. But The Great Hunt is the second in the series and the first that I read in the year 2016. And it's just, I can't really give much because of spoilers, but it's a really fun world in the Wheel of Time. It's the second in the Wheel of Time series, and the characters that you get to know more, you get to see more character development from them, you get to know more of a history of the world and see different locations, and it's just really fun to live vicariously through these characters from the comfort of your own living room. And I am really just enthusiastic about getting back into this series. The sixth on the list is The Goose Girl by Shannon Hale. This is a fairy tale retelling just of the Goose Girl. It's in novel form, and this one was such a lovely surprise. I didn't know if I was going to enjoy it, but a friend who I do a really low-key book club with suggested that we read it together, and I did, and it was so much fun. And it's just about Ani, who from the time she's little has been able to communicate with animals, and how this skill, she kind of has to hide it, and then she just learns kind of who she is by the end of the story and how she can sort of hone her skill for good. And like I said, it just felt very different from other fairy tales, and it was such a lovely surprise, and I'll definitely be rereading it. The next in the series, the next in my list is My Family and Other Animals by Gerald Durrell. You all, if you've been watching my channel for any time, have heard me talk about this book. It's such a treat. It's fun. It's funny. It's, it's got a really interesting plot. It's got a picturesque location. It just checks so many of them. I wanted to read a couple quotes to you, and the first says, "Eventually the warm wind and the rain of winter seemed to polish the sky, so that when January arrived, it shone a clear, tender blue. The same blue as that of the tiny flames that devoured the olive logs in the charcoal pits. The nights were still and cool, with the moon so fragile it barely freckled the sea with silver points. The dawns were pale and translucent until the sun rose, mist-wrapped like a gigantic silkworm cocoon, and washed the island with a delicate bloom of gold dust." The writing is just stunning. And then a more funny passage. "Spring affected the family in a variety of ways. Larry, his older brother, bought himself a guitar and a large barrel of strong red wine. He interspersed his bouts of work by playing haphazardly on the instrument and singing Elizabethan love songs in a meek tenor voice, with frequent pauses for refreshment. This would soon induce a mood of melancholy, and the love songs would become more doleful. While between each, Larry would pause to inform whichever member of the family happened to be present that spring for him did not mean the beginning of a new year, but the death of the old one. The grave, he would proclaim, making the guitar rumble ominously, yawned a little wider with each season." I highly recommend My Family and Other Animals. And next on the list is The 13th Tale, and this is by Diane Setterfield, and also a lovely surprise I had heard many people talk about, but for some reason I was skeptical, but I'm so glad that I did finally try this. And this is about the famous author Vi de Winter, and she is very prolific and wants to have an official biography written by our main character. And she has been very mysterious and given all sorts of contradictory stories about her past, and she wants to set the record straight, and there's a sort of mystery about her past, and we don't exactly know who she is or where she's from. And it's just a book for book lovers. It's a book for those who like mysteries, and it's just very gothic feeling, and I read it in the fall, and it was just a wonderful, wonderful fall read. And the last on the list is Winter Solstice. This is by Rosamund Pilcher, and I read this just in the month of December, and it was such a fun Rosamund Pilcher because it was filled with Christmas preparations and all of the excitement that comes before Christmas, and just more characters for me to fall in love with. She has such a knack for creating really fully fleshed out characters, and characters who are always kind of going through a transition time in their life, and they end up in this beautiful setting, and I love that formula so much that I'm okay with it. So those are the most fun books of the year. Please let me know books that were really fun for you to read, and I will see you guys soon for another video.